Hello everyone, so we are talking about chipping. Chipping is my favorite part of the game because, well, back in my playing days, it saved me so many shots per round. Under pressure, I would get a little bit nervous and ball striking just wasn't my best, but I could scramble and get up and down from anywhere. I always felt like chipping was the best part of my game because it has just so much creativity and you can hit so many different types of shots, and there's not one right or wrong way to chip or the right technique. You can just kind of do whatever you want, but there are some basics, and that's what we're going to talk about right now. All comes down to a really good setup. For every type of shot, you can hit honestly almost any club that you want. Again, this goes back to chipping being so creative and how you tend to see certain shots, what you prefer. Me, I prefer to use my 54-degree wedge. I will chip around the green with this club all the time. It is my go-to. I like this one because it has enough loft where I feel like it will still get up in the air and spin, but it doesn't spin as much as a 58 or a 60, which sometimes can be a little bit hard to hit and to control. So the 54 just feels really good to me. There are so many really crazy fun shots to hit around the greens, but honestly, they're hard to pull off, and most of you will not be using that technique or those shots really anytime. They're more just fun to hit. This basic technique is going to be your most useful chipping technique that you will ever learn, and it's small little changes throughout your setup that's going to make the ball go higher or lower. So let's just start right with the basics. When it comes to your grip, you're going to do your normal golf grip. Again, most people will do an overlap or an interlock. I like to do an overlap grip. When you grip the club, instead of having it all the way at the butt end, you're going to choke down, which means you're just going to move your hands down the grip. You do this to get more control. When you're at the end, it feels a little bit loose and unsteady. So choking down makes it just a little bit shorter and easy to have that nice little chipping motion. It just feels better. So after you choke down and get your grip, next you're gonna have your stance. This is a personal feel. Most people like a more narrow stance. I prefer a more narrow stance, but if you like it a little bit wider, there's nothing stopping you from doing that. With short game, it's all about feel and confidence. And so if having a narrow stance just doesn't feel right for you, it's okay to make it a little bit more narrow. I don't recommend a wide stance. We're gonna save that for our bunker shots and our flop shots down the road. But a narrow stance just gets you a little bit more on top of the ball, and it's all about control. So I don't like my feet touching. It feels a bit unsteady for me. So I still have it narrow, but there is about two balls in between my feet. But think about that. I mean, you guys will have a nice, okay, I digress. You get what I'm saying. You can find the stance that works best for you. I like two balls. Okay, moving on. After we find our two balls and our nice little narrow stance, we're choking down. I like to move my feet just slightly to the left to open my body. It just helps me rotate back and turn through it. Since it is such a small little movement, having that open stance just really helps me get my body through the shot. If I have it square, I just feel stuck on my left side and I don't feel like I can turn through it. So opening your stance just helps you rotate through. Open your stance, and you're gonna add just a little bit of loft on the club. And so when I say a little bit of loft, it sets naturally here, and that is a little bit of loft. So you just wanna rotate your hands backwards and a little bit upwards. So right now we are in the perfect chipping stance. It feels comfortable. I feel like I'm gonna hit a good shot, and it's a pretty easy setup. Again, you can make slight little adjustments depending on what feels more comfortable to you. Again, you can have your feet a little bit wider. You can have them a little bit more square if you don't feel like you get stuck on your follow through. I highly recommend choking down on all of your short game shots. Everything else is a suggestion that I think you should follow because it has worked for me and it has worked with a lot of other people that I've helped with their short game. But choking down is not a suggestion, you must do it. We have the perfect setup. Let's move on to the next steps. We're going to talk about ball position, alignment, and routine. So when it comes to ball position, it's a bit dependent on the shot that you want to hit. If you want to hit it higher, you're going to move the ball more forward in your stance. If you want to hit the ball lower, you're going to move it more back in your stance. This is what I was talking about with the setup, where it's really small little changes that's going to affect how the ball reacts. And so the setup is really important, but when it comes to ball position, I personally prefer my ball a little bit more forward than most people. But normally you should have it a little bit farther back. I usually do center. Some people like to put it just inside their back foot. This is also dependent on how wide you like your feet. So this goes back to being personal preference and feel. And that's again why I love short games so much, because you can be so creative. But it comes down to a lot of practice and seeing what works for you. I noticed that a ball position that's a little bit more center or forward of center feels really good to me because I like to see a little bit of a higher shot, and that's what I visualize when I'm going through my routine. But if you prefer a shot that's a little bit lower, you can move it a little bit more back. So I want you guys at home to just don't do this at home. Don't chip at home. What am I saying? Don't chip at home. Go out and practice your short game and find what works for you. I want you to try forward, I want you to try center, and I want you to try the ball back in your stance so you can see how, one, it affects the ball, but what also feels good to you for your stock chip shot. When I say that the ball is more middle, forward, or back, that means we'll start with middle because that's the easiest. So it's just from the bottom of your chest, which you guys know this really well, so you should know this. So you drop it all the way down, that would be the middle. And then forward would be, you're just gonna move it up in your stance. So you're gonna move it towards your front foot. So your left foot if you're a righty, your right foot if you're a lefty. And then to move it back in your stance, you're just going to move it off of your back foot. I'm gonna show you all of these shots at another time, so definitely keep on watching. But when you move the ball back in your stance, it's gonna make the ball go lower. Again, I want you to test all of these out to see what works for you, and so you can also see how the ball reacts. So middle, forward, and back. After you find the ball position that works for you, next is the alignment. Since you have your stance a bit more open, if that's what you choose to do, it means that your body is going to be facing more towards the left side. So you have to adjust for that, because if I have my feet towards the left and I align my body towards the left, that means I'm going to feel almost as if I'm pulling the shot over, and you might see a lot of shots go left if you are starting to move your feet open for the very first time. So to adjust for this, you aim a little bit more right to offset the open stance. And so when I'm lining up, I have it square to my target. I'm going to move just slightly to the right and then open my stance, and you can actually see the club and my body and everything almost straighten out and get back to square. And so again, I'm going to repeat that because I know it can be a little confusing. We're going to start square to my target, and when I say my target, I'm not talking about the pin, I'm talking about where I want to land it. And so if the green is moving from right to left, I'm going to aim up a little bit more to the right on where my target is, open my stance, and that squares everything back up. So we have the proper alignment. Let's talk about routine and getting into your setup. We talked about the basic setup, but sometimes it could be difficult on going through your routine and getting back into that position. So what I like to do for my routine is, first up, I walk over to the green and see how the green is reacting. Is it uphill? Is it downhill? Most people don't realize that you actually have to read the green as if it's a putt for your chip. So once I look at where I want to land it, dependent on how the green is breaking, is it going left to right, right to left? Is it uphill? Is it downhill? How far I have to carry? I'm going to walk back and I'm going to pick the shot that I want to hit. So off of my basic stock setup, I could want to hit a little bit higher, a little bit lower, so I would move the ball forward or back, which we talked about. Here's how I like to do my setup in my routine. So I like to put my club down first, and I don't grip my club and then set it down, because if you want the club open or shut, if you have your grip already set, you're having to adjust it by either moving your hands forward or moving your hands back, which essentially it might look like that it's set up, but it's still just square. And so you want to actually open it or close it before you set your grip. That is highly, highly important. This is one of the biggest tips that I can give you. When you are setting your club, you want to open it or close it before you have your grip, because again, if you grip it and just close it or open it, it's still just square. So I am going to have it a little bit open. I'm going to choke down, set my grip. I like to get my target, set my feet, and your setup is good to go, and you have gone through your routine. You have great ball position depending on the shot that you want to hit. You have your alignment. Now let's hit the shot. The chipping movement is actually quite simple, and I've noticed so many people overcomplicate this movement. The biggest mistake is that they take it back way too far, and then they have to decelerate on their downswing because it's actually such a small little shot. You don't need a ton of movement or a huge backswing. I want you to relax. Same with chipping as putting. Most people get so incredibly tense, especially on a tight lie in the fairway, that they are gripping the club so hard, their arms are so stiff and they can't move. And so I want you to first shake your hands, shake your arms out. And remember, when you grip the club, it's like gripping a little baby bird. You do not want to crush the baby bird. Have a nice, light grip. Once we feel loose and ready to go, we know our proper stance and setup. So after that, we're just relaxed. Take a deep breath. And it's a slight little movement. Again, it's not this, because if I'm hitting such a small shot, you have to decelerate, and that's when people hit behind the ball, or they'll look up and they'll hit it thin. It's this small little motion. My arms feel very connected to my armpits and my chest. There's no separation. I'm not pushing it out. I'm not releasing it forward. It's just a small rotation. Arms are staying close to my body. There's a slight wrist hook, which means that my hands, instead of being straight from my forearms to my wrist, there's a slight bend, and this just helps you release the club and turn through it. It's not a big follow through, so you don't have to go small and release it all the way up. Again, it is such a small little motion. You want to let the club head do the work. Most people try to force the ball in the air, but you are hitting a wedge that has loft on it, and so let the club do what the club is meant to do. You don't have to try to force it into the air. I don't want you leaning backwards. Make sure your weight stays center and you're turning on your front foot, almost so that you can feel like you can lift your back leg up and turn around your front leg. If you lean backwards and you're hitting the shot on your back leg, you're gonna bottom out behind the golf ball, and our impact is right next to the ball, not behind it. So again, weight on your back foot, you're gonna bottom out behind it, you're gonna lift up. A lot of bad things are going to happen if you do that. So make sure your weight is centered and even just slightly on your front foot. I like 70-30 or 60-40. So 60% of my weight is on my front foot, the rest is on my back foot. And you're just turning around. Short game is all about confidence and trust. You need to have trust in your club, trust in yourself, and it's such a small little movement. So don't overcomplicate it. It really is quite simple. Most people just try to overcomplicate it. They try to do majority of the work. Just let the club fall and it's gonna work out. It really is quite simple. As you could see when I was hitting that shot, weight stayed forward, slight wrist cock, turn through, let the club do the work. We all know that golf is hard, but don't make it harder on yourself by overcomplicating such a small, simple movement. Here are 2 drills that I love that have really helped me with my touch. So first off, all you're gonna need is a towel, a golf towel, preferably my towel to put a smile on your face and to help your short game. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna place the towel on the green on where I want the ball to land. So I'm guessing that if I am chipping from back there and I land the ball here, it should roll out perfectly here. That's the goal. So if the first one I landed a little bit too far and it actually seems perfect, then I'll get up and I'll move the towel. If you're in a tournament or if you're playing and you're trying to find where you want to land it, it's just a great drill to also work on your visualization and seeing, okay, if I land it here, it's gonna roll out that far. So the first one I landed short. It rolled out because I didn't clip it perfectly, so I'm going to leave the towel where it is, so I still think it's in a good spot. Again, I landed a little bit short and it was actually perfect, so I'm going to move the towel up to adjust for how the green is reacting. When I'm practicing, I like to go through a mini routine. This helps you get in the right mindset of taking what you're practicing on the practice range over to the golf course. Sometimes we get in a bad habit of hitting, pull a ball back, hit, pull a ball back, hit, pull a ball back, and our feet and our stance never changes, and that's not realistic of what you're going to see on the golf course. And so every time you're doing any drill that I recommend, I want you to go through a mini routine. You don't have to walk up and walk back and do everything, but I want you to take some practice swings, visualize the practice swing, having the ball land on the towel and roll out. Then I want you to take your time on your setup, because the setup is the most important part of any swing you're going to take. So focus on that. Don't rush this process. Well, I didn't land it on the towel, but I made it, so. Again, don't get too hard on yourself and be like, oh, I'm not landing on the towel, I'm not landing on the towel. This drill is great to work on your touch and your feel and also visualizing the shot. So again, don't be too hard on yourself. Have fun. It's supposed to be a game. I really want you to work on your attitude, because I think people get so discouraged when it comes to chipping, because it's something that a lot of people do struggle with. And so for a drill like this, have fun with it. I'm not hitting the towel, and I love short game, and I feel like I'm pretty good at it. So if I can't do it, don't be so hard on yourself and get frustrated. It's supposed to be fun. Set goals for yourself. So maybe you have to hit the towel 10 times before you can move on to another drill, or you have to hit it 2 times, whatever feels comfortable to you, but try to make it a game, try to make it fun, and put some pressure on yourself, because you're going to feel that pressure out on the golf course, whether it's just for fun or maybe a money match with your buddies. But adding a little bit of pressure does make such a big difference. One mistake I made throughout my entire career is that I would practice for hours, but I did it with no pressure. And when I went out on the golf course, I felt like a completely different person, because your body reacts, your hands, you have this tension in your body. And when it comes to such a short little shot, it really shows up. So putting some pressure on yourself, maybe you have to hit the towel 2 times in a row. But again, that is so important to bring what you're working on here over to the golf course. The next drill is going through your entire bag. I don't have a cool name for this one, I'm sorry. It just is what it is. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go through our entire bag and just hit shots. Again, short game is all about being creative and seeing how each club reacts differently. It's a personal preference and a personal feel. So after all of my years of chipping around the green, I realized that I love my 54. It is the perfect club for me. I feel that it reacts the way that I want it to react. When I am going through my pre-shot routine, I just tend to see shots as if my 54 is hitting those shots. But just because I love a 54, that doesn't mean that that is the right club for you. So this drill is great to see how the ball is reacting, try different shots, see what works for you, and also to get touch and feel, again, because that is one of the most important aspects of short game. I love this drill because it's just so much fun to see that you can hit almost every single club in your bag and make it work for short game shots. And so you don't have to be so hard on yourself when you're on a tight lie and you're looking at what club you want to hit, and most people grab a 60-degree wedge. They end up just digging it into the ground and it doesn't work. And sometimes the safe shot, which would be an 8-iron or a 7-iron, is the right play. It might not look the prettiest, it might not be the coolest shot to hit, but it's the right shot, and you have to know what works for you. When you're picking the shot to go through this drill, have it be a very basic shot. We don't want any bunkers in front of you. It should be wide open with a lot of green to work with, because you're going to be hitting less lofted clubs, and it would just be stupid to try to hit like a flop 7-iron. That's not the goal. We're trying to see how each club reacts and where you need to land it. So have nothing in front of you, not even anything too severe uphill or downhill, something as level as possible. And it's just a really straightforward shot. It's not about necessarily getting it as close to the hole as you can. It's about seeing how each ball reacts. I'm going to start with my 58 because it's my most lofted club in my bag. But if you have something that is more lofted, start with that club and then work your way from there. I like to hit about 3 to 5 balls with each club. I know sometimes that people absolutely despise practicing short game and their chipping especially. It's so neglected. So if 5 just feels too overwhelming for you, hit 2, hit 3, whatever feels comfortable to you, because chipping is one of the most important aspects to shooting lower scores. And I think people forget that. And most times they look back on their rounds and they're like, I missed this many greens and this many fairways, and I shot a score that just doesn't feel good, and it's way too high for what I feel like I should be shooting. And so they're like, I should go and practice my irons and my driver because I'm missing greens. But in reality, you're not getting up and down. And most of the time, people are hitting multiple chip shots. They'll chip it over the green, takes them forever to get out of the bunker. Having a really great short game and being amazing around the greens is going to save you so many shots. But let's get back to the drill. We're going to start with the 58. So right off the bat, since I tend to use my 54, I just felt that in my body and I visualized that. And with the 58, it spun a lot more and went a little bit higher, and it ended up being shorter. So again, it just shows you how each club reacts differently and how you have to play different shots with each club. So by the end of it, I got the feel that I was looking for, but it took me 2 shots to get back into what I need to be doing. So you know the drill works. After that, we're gonna move on to my next lofted club, which is my baby. It's the 54, the club I always go to and feel the most comfortable with. 7. You're probably asking, okay, so I stop at my longest iron. No, you work your way through your entire bag. There is a time and a place to hit a hybrid or a fairway wood. A lot of people feel very comfortable putting around the greens from far away, and I'm all for that too. I think sometimes that is the safest play. You want to get it on the ground and rolling as fast as possible, but sometimes there's just a little bit in your way, and if you putt it, you're going to hit some grass, it's going to pop up in the air, and so hitting a wood or a hybrid adds just a little bit of loft, but it gets it rolling, and it's a great shot to hit. There's a couple ways that you can do this. For this drill, I want you just to grip it normally, but you can also grip it with your putting grip and your putting stance if that also feels more comfortable to you. So try both of those out. Do your normal chipping stance and then do your putting stance and see which one feels better. You're going to stop at your 3-wood. You can also hit your putter if you want to. I know a lot of people get shamed for hitting their putter from off the green, but it really is a great shot to hit, again, because there's just less room for error if you get it on the ground and rolling as soon as possible. So don't let your buddy shame you into not hitting that wood or that hybrid or that putter. It really is such a great and useful shot. You don't need to hit your driver unless you really want to challenge yourself, but I just go up to my 3-wood. Again, this is an incredible drill just to see how the ball reacts and get that touch and that feel. I'm going to show you how to hit the low spinner. This is the show-stopping shot. It's really cool because I hate to brag, but Tiger Woods actually taught me this shot. So what you do is you open your club an uncomfortable amount. I remember opening it and he's like, no more. And I was like, okay. He's like, no more. So once you have it almost flat on its back, you're going to grip the club and choke down. Next, to get the low in the low spinner, you're going to put it really far back in your stance. This shot is all about exaggeration. So really open club face, ball way back in your stance. You're going to open your stance up, and it feels almost like a cut motion. So you go out and you go in, out, in. So here's how to hit my world famous flop shot. First off, you want to start with a really open club face. The key here is to open the club face, then grip it. Don't grip it, then open the club face. So we have the club face open. We're going to grip it and choke down. After we choke down, we are going to get a super, super wide base. Open your legs as far as you possibly can, and you want to lower your hands. This helps you get lower so you can drop your hands and add more loft to the club. The butt end of the club, I want it to be facing your belly button. This helps you get more center over the golf ball, and again, add more loft because that's the goal of the flop shot. After we have our setup, we're going to move the ball forward in our stance, and here's the key. Weight is forward, you turn around your front leg, and you let the club head do all of the work. I don't want you to pull it down, I want you to have the club head fall. It's a casting, a throwing motion, and you just turn through it and trust it. Have a little bit of speed, but we're not going at 100. That's where people mess up. They go full out and it feels out of control. I want you at 85%. Open the club face, choke down, ball forward, wide stance, move the butt end back, weight forward, turn through. That's your flop shot. Here's how to hit the bump and run. If you struggle with chipping, this is a very useful shot for you to learn, especially if you have a ton of green to work with. First off, you want to grab a less lofted club. I like an 8-iron. You can use a 9 to a 5-iron, whatever your personal preference is. You're going to set up square. You're not going to add any loft to the club. You're going to choke down, have a nice narrow stance, put the ball back in your stance, open your feet up slightly, weight forward, and after this you want to feel totally connected. So you're just going to turn back, turn through. It almost feels as if it's a putting motion. Let the club head do the work. And that's a bump and run. Here's how to chip out of the rough. We have 2 lies here, one that's sitting on top of the grass and one that's nestled down. When the ball is sitting up on the rough, it's really just a basic chip shot. You want to feel as if you're almost picking it, because if you hit down on it, you're actually going to hit it high on the club face. So the goal is to hit it here instead of here. It's a basic setup. So we're going to have our club slightly open. We're going to choke down. We're going to have our stance open, ball slightly back, and then instead of going down after it, we're just going to feel like we're skimming the top of the grass. Don't have to do too much with it. However, when the ball is nestled down, it's a different shot. You're going to want to open the club face, put it back in your stance, have a bit of a wider stance, not too wide. And I like the visualization of hitting the back of a ketchup packet and the ketchup flying. That's what you want to do. You want to come hard on the back of the ball and let it pop out of the lie. So you cock your wrist and you just let it fall and do the club head do the work. And that's how you get out of the rough. Here's how to hit a basic bunker shot. It's essentially just a flop shot in the sand. So you're going to do the same technique. You're going to open the club face. You're going to choke down. You're going to have a super wide base. You're going to want the ball forward in your stance. Weight on your front foot. It's 90% on your front foot, 10% on your back foot. You're going to turn around your front leg. Nice wrist cock and let the club head do the work and just let it fall. You're going to do that casting motion again. Turn through it, have confidence, and hit the bunker shot. That's how you hit a perfect bunker shot.